Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at some of the top teams in the Regulation MB meta right now. And of course, a quick disclaimer, the teams that I'm going to share are not my own, so full credits to the original creators of the teams. I will try to shout them out along the way, but if I forget, my apologies. Starting this list off, we have a team that's picked up a lot in usage as of late. We've got Mega Raichu Y and Mega Staraptor. And this team has been really picking up in the online majors with the Victory Road tournaments. We've seen it get first and second place at the most recent one, along with, I believe, a top 8 or top 16. That one I'm a little less certain on in the one prior to that, as well as some decent ladder placements as well. So really, really cool team here. And it's really fun to see, I think, two of the most talked about Mega Evolutions allowed in Regulation MB actually become a pair together. So of course, guys, I'm going through the Cybertron recreation of the team. If you are looking for more gameplay with this team and a more in-depth breakdown, feel free to check out their video as well. But most importantly, guys, you have a pretty standard Raichu here with the Zap Cannon, Focus Blast, Fake Out, and Protect. I would go ahead and say that this is probably what you're looking at as the standard option. The max HP is, I think, nothing new. There's probably a little bit more fine-tuning you can do to live certain calcs. But I think the concept of the bulk on the Raichu is very, very nice. And I think that's one of the key points I wouldn't change about this. Just being able to, actually live attacks is phenomenal. I was playing on stream last night, not versus this team, but I ended up clicking like a Life Orb Extreme Speed and an Aqua Jet. And the Raichu managed to live, and it completely turned the entirety of the game on its head, right? Like, I thought for sure I was picking up that KO. So the extra bulk on this Raichu, I think, is pivotal. I don't know the exact calcs that you want to be looking for here, but I definitely wouldn't stray from that bulk. And the max speed makes a lot of sense, right? Once you Mega, you end up at base 200, which speed ties the Aerodactyls that aren't Mega and other stuff in that speed tier. So overall, pretty cool mon here. Staraptor, and once again, this is what you're seeing. You're seeing the bulk on the faster pieces because they're able to be well supported, right? Once again, a little bit more bulk on this Raptor here. This is actually the dual wing beat variant with a tailwind, so a little bit different than the ones that normally, try to send Brave Bird and, setting themselves up with like a charm and then sending big damage with a Brave Bird close combat and then roosting back up. This Staraptor actually is capable of supporting its own team as well with that tailwind, which I think is really, really nice, especially in partner with Sylveon and Arcanine. I think those two really benefit from the tailwind. So seeing that tech there is really, really nice. Rather than just kind of putting all your cards onto Staraptor, you're kind of spreading the damage out and allowing Staraptor to not only do damage itself, but support the rest of its team. Arcanine is a very interesting Pokemon that's kind of seen a little bit of usage here and there. I feel like it should have seen more just with how prominent Charizard has been as of late. And seeing it pick up is actually interesting, although opting for no Rock Slide seems a little suspicious, but I understand why, right? Because you kind of want all the other moves, right? Flare Blitz, Head Smash, Extreme Speed is really, really nice to pick up some of like those last little HP Pokemon that live on a Focus Sash. Maybe they're on like 1 or 2 HP, right? So that Extreme Speed is really nice, and then I am a sucker to have Protect, so I understand why it's here. Really, really cool concept. Of no Rock Slide, something I'd never considered, but it's a cool option. And then with a Focus Sash, you're just going to go max. There's really no reason not to. The Giraffe, the Sylveon, and the King Gambit are, in my opinion, pretty common and pretty straightforward, so I'm not really going to look at them too much. There's nothing crazy. The Helping Hand, of course, from the Giraffe is nice as opposed to that tech move. But once again, just your good old-fashioned bulky Giraffe with a Citrus Berry, and you're not going to die. You get Trick Room support for Sylveon and King Gambit sweeps outside of the fast stuff. But then you also have Helping Hand to boost your 2 big fast pieces, or your third technically, if you include Arcanine in that mix. And overall, just a really consistent Pokemon. Same with the Sylveon, just looking at doing big fairy damage. Fairy is such an offensive type. And when you can put it in range, or when you can put it in a spread move that's actually going to do damage like Hyper Voice from this Sylveon because of the Pixelate ability, the damage over time is just ridiculous, right? Whether you're going into Trick Room and clicking Hyper Voice like 3-4 times, by the time they get through the Sylveon, more often than not, they've taken a lot of damage, and the end of your the other parts of your team can wrap things up. Or, you know, you do some chip damage, maybe you paralyze some things with the Raichu Zap Cannon, and then Sylveon becomes faster and you start clicking Hyper Voice. And then, of course, King Gambit. It's going to be a King Gambit, guys. It's King Gambit. There's not much to say here. Obviously, the Life Orb, picking up a little bit of extra damage, which I think is really, really nice. You can easily... Let me rephrase that. Some Pokemon can start living, you know, the +2 Sucker Punch from the Black Glasses King Gambit. That Life Orb skews those calcs so much more in your favor, and all of a sudden you become just an absolute threat that a lot of players aren't ready to try and survive, especially if you do manage to get, you know, a Swords Dance off, because then +2 Sucker Punch with a Life Orb, it's going to kill most of the format. So King Gambit on the merits of simply King Gambit on this team, and really, really cool to see. Just the Staraptor and the Raichu felt really, really good, right? Raichu weak to ground. Normally you see people try to pair the Raichu with the Ninetales for that to get around the, you know, the Garchomp stuff, but why not have an Intimidator that also is its own threat that can be immune to the ground as well, right? So really, really cool team here. Curious to see how this team kind of develops as it goes. It's still a relatively new team in terms of like success, so curious to see how this develops moving forward, if it develops or if this is just like the proper build. Next up on this list, we're sticking to the Staraptor teams, at least for right now. We've got Staraptor and Mega Delphox being the two Megas on this build. And one thing I want to point out is Delphox really struggled with King Gambit. It always has, so you always end up seeing them, you know, with the substitute, with the redirectors, with maybe the nasty plot instead, but just ways to get around that Sucker Punch. But obviously substitute's still really, really strong. I think it's a very cool tech option as opposed to the ones that are running nasty plot. You lose the damage output, right, with the substitute, but you get so much more value of longevity, especially in terms of when you're beside, you know, Staraptor with Intimidate for some of the other physical attackers in the format. You don't have the redirection support on this team to run the nasty plot. So I think the substitute on this variant is a really, really cool adjustment, and I think it's a cool option. The Staraptor with the Delphox is very nice because when I see Staraptor, even as a King Gambit player, you know, I see Delphox, I want to bring my King Gambit because Sucker Punch puts on so much pressure. It puts me in a lot of positions, and if they're running like the Focus Sash King Gambits, and I think a lot of the King Gambits anyways live the Heat Wave, depending on how they're built. So without the nasty plot on this Delphox, King Gambit looks very good, but Staraptor, of course, covers that with that big fighting type once it Mega Evolves, the close combat for massive damage, and a defense boost as well. So the King Gambit can't really break through this very easily. They have their own King Gambit here with the Low Kick and the Choppleberry. So you have a lot of coverage and anti-King Gambit just to make Delphox go, and I think that's really, really cool. It's a little bit of a shake-up from the normal, oh, I'm going to just, you know, double fake out redirection support the Delphox. It's more of a hyper aggressive Delphox team with the proper coverage support to deal with the King Gambit rather than just I'm just gonna redirect it away. So cool concept here, but we also see a lot of kind of old concepts coming back. So nothing really too crazy here. Like Whimsicott Garchomp has been good since the beginning of Regulation MA. Of course, now we are seeing it with the Life Orb Garchomp here. We do see the Charm on the Whimsicott to be able to boost that Staraptor. And the Occaberry is a very interesting tech. I'm not sure if that's for Incin, Charizard. I don't know if you can live anything from Charizard here. Maybe a Heat Wave. So if that does live you the Heat Wave, then it's pretty cool. I see the tech, right? A lot of fire moves in the format right now, especially to try and deal with the King Gambits and stuff like that. So Occaberry makes a lot of sense. Definitely would make sense, especially if you're living Heat Wave from Charizard. Just force them to click like a Weather Ball into you, leaving your partner Pokemon alive for just another turn. And other than that, it's just the Glimmora is nothing new either. We've seen Glimmora in the past. Big Focus Sash, big damage output. You get Toxic Debris to start stalling endgames if you want. The way I look at this team, you kind of have two modes. I kind of see like Whimsicott Glimmora lead with a Staraptor mode in the back, and then kind of pick your last one. And you hopefully get some spikes up, and then you can go with the Staraptor mode. And like once you get a couple close combats up, you ideally shouldn't be dying before your opponents are dying to poison. Or, you know, if you need to, you can just start clicking close combat and taking things out. Then you also have just the Delphox mode where, you know, you're going to just send damage, right? You have Garchomp Delphox, which just like Garchomp Charizard, you're going to send big fire move, big ground move, and it's going to do good damage, right? Obviously, tons of different intricacies on this team as well. But overall, I think it's a really, really cool team and a different way to kind of approach the Delphox stuff outside of just I'm going to follow me and protect the queen kind of style games. So really cool concept here. Moving on to a team, if you asked me if it's good, I would tell you no. However, it's continued to prove me wrong time and time again. It had very good success at the end of Regulation MA, and moving into Regulation MB, we just continue to see this team picking up consistent top cuts. I believe it's picked up a 3rd place in both of the last 2 Victory Road Majors, which is very interesting to see. And I'm probably the wrong guy to talk intricacies of this team in terms of how to play it. So I will leave a link to a YouTube video where they brought on one of the creators of the team to check that out down below. So feel free if you're interested in playing this style of team. I'm probably the wrong guy to learn it from, but there's definitely a cool resource down below, so feel free to check that out. Of course, the rental code and paste are all down there as well, as they always are. But overall, Mega Froslass is a very interesting Pokemon. It's a Pokemon where it has a lot of offensive potential. Its defensive potential, though, is very lackluster. So putting it beside a Follow Me user makes sense. My problem with this core arises the fact that my Follow Me user is another Mega. So now I want to have redirection beside my Froslass. But now I'm bringing both my Megas, and obviously you can only Mega Evolve one Pokemon in a single game. So it feels like I'm either bringing non-Mega Froslass or I'm bringing non-Mega Scovillain a little more than I'd like. That could just be me not knowing anything about this team at all, because I'm sure you can get away with bringing Froslass and then having Lycanroc and Kingambit Sneasler to support that Froslass, and then you can go like Scovillain Basculegion mode, right? There's definitely ways to not have to bring both, but I feel like every time I look at this team and I say I'm going to explore this, I end up being in a situation where it's like I just end up wanting both, and to me that feels not great in terms of viability. But overall, like I said, the team has proven me wrong time and time again. You got your standard Froslass here, guys. Blizzard, Shadow Ball, Aurora Veil. And you're just going to do fast damage, right? You're going to go big damage with Blizzards. You're going to go... The Modest is nice. I don't know exactly what Modest 10 is for. I know the concept being that you want to go Modest because Modest allows you to pick up the KOs into the Basculegions with Shadow Ball. So I'd imagine that's what that 10 is sitting there for. But you do, however, get to the spot where now you are just slower than the Staraptor. Not that it's a big deal because, you know, you're a ghost type, so it's not like they're going to get defense boost up before you're able to click a Blizzard. So it's a very interesting Pokemon, Froslass. It has a lot of potential, but every time I look at it, it just ends up seeing like it's weak to so much of what's common. You know, the Kingambits, the Basculegions. So it's interesting. The Scovillain is very, very nice, of course, for those Kingambits, for those physically offensive teams, where, you know, you can just redirect, get them burned, and then the rest of your team goes crazy, right? You start redirecting the Kingambits, they're burned. You redirect the Basculegion, it's burned, right? It's a very good ability in that, I believe it's Spicy Spray or whatever it's called. I don't know exactly what the ability is called on the Mega Evolution. I could go find it, but it's irrelevant. Long story short, you hit this thing, you're getting burned if you're not like a fire type. So it's very interesting. It's a very defensive style Mega Evolution. It is called Spicy Spray. See, I was right. But it's a very defensive style Mega Evolution, very different from what I would normally play. But I understand the concept of, you know, you want to just force people away from your big sweepers, right? The Lycanroc is a very cute tech versus like the Charizards versus the Kingambits. It's got a lot of coverage. You can do a lot of cool things with this piece. You can tech Psychic Fangs as well. I have seen variants of that with Psychic Fangs instead of Protect. I think Protect is by far better, so I'm happy it was on this variant here. Kingambit, just once again, on the merits of Kingambit, guys. It's going to happen a lot in this video. Just merits of Kingambit, good Pokemon. Send Swords Dance, send Sucker Punch, send Kowtow Cleave, send big damage, and you go from there. And like I said, Sneasler. First time we see Sneasler on this list. It's kind of fallen off in Regulation MB. However, we do see once again on these Froslass teams that the Sneasler likes being bulky. right? You don't want your entire team to kind of fall apart to like priority. So having a little bit of a bulkier Sneasel just allows you to stick on the field for that extra turn. You can do some cool things in collaboration with a Aurora Veil as well. And the Sneasler Froslass lead on its own is very oppressive. So really, really cool team here. And of course, just Basculegion being Basculegion here. Citrus Berry is fun. I've seen a few variants rock a Choice Scarf here as well, just for a little bit more immediate pressure, because you don't really have the speed control that you want. But I would say the Citrus Berry has been the best or the most consistent option on this team. And then, of course, just beside the Scovillain for redirection, right? Like, they want to bring King Gambit. King Gambit is the best answer to Basculegion in the format. So by putting Scovillain beside Basculegion, it's there. And, like, you don't necessarily need to be Scarf because you're protecting the Basculegion so well. Once again, guys, I know I was a little harsh on this team. The team is a very good team. I don't like this team. I don't understand how this team actually functions in terms of like the ins and outs of battle, but the pieces for this team to succeed are there, and obviously it has been succeeding. So I definitely wanted to give it a shout. Moving on, we have Mega Gengar Rain Perish, and I think this solves a lot of the problems with the Perish archetype. This team, of course, was initially created by Eduardo Cunha, a previous world champion of the game. The official pace is not out, but shoutouts to my friend Lev for recreating the team, and we will have a rental down below as well. So some of the EVs, guys, may be definitely not original or what they are, but I think they're pretty close to what I would expect, so we're going to run with this. But as I was saying, the concept of the rain mode on the Perish, I think, solves a lot of the issues that Perish has. Perish has a lot of issues with big ground types. Perish has a lot of issues with sometimes needing to have an offensive mode. And I think having the Politoed, the Swampert, the Archaludon, it allows this team to go on the offense when it needs to. And I think that's like the big thing I like about this team the most. And it's probably the best Perish version in the format because of that, right? A lot of the Rain teams also fall to the, well, we're just going to go all in on Rain, have a lot of offense, and they don't really have a backbone. So it kind of solves both problems at the same time, right? You solve the lack of offense on the Perish team, and you solve the defensive backbone problem on the Rain team. So I think overall the consistency between those two pieces, or those two options, is very, very nice. And then you just have this little annoying bug over here that's just going to put you to sleep if you do anything wrong. The redirection is very, very nice. And there's just so much position that you're able to get out of putting something to sleep, out of the redirection, setting up your Politoed, sending your Politoed in, sending Hurricanes as well. And then, of course, Mega Swampert is an absolute beast under Rain with Wave Crash, Ice Punch, Earthquake, and Protect. Just absolute damage coming out from this piece. And then just overall, right, you got your standard defensive Mega Gengar, right? You got a lot of bulk. Don't really need a lot of special attack because you don't need it to be the offensive piece, right? The Gengar on the Perish team, it struggles because it wants to be able to do damage with their Shadow Balls, with their Sludge Bombs. However, when you have it on a team like this, you don't necessarily need to have that. So I see why it's here, but like I see why you don't have a lot of special attack. You could easily, in my opinion, drop some of these defenses, but that might just be me looking at this a little bit differently. But I understand why it's here because you have the offensive version with the rest of the team, right? You don't necessarily need it to be on the Gengar at all. Overall, just your pretty standard Mega Gengar, guys. Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Perish, Protect. Nothing too crazy at all. Once again, your standard Perish Song Incineroar. Double attack, Protect is the key part here. And then, of course, Fake Out. Nice and slow as well, so you can pivot out after everything else attacks. Or at least attempt to pivot out after everything else attacks. Because the common Perish line is, you know, you're going to Fake Out Perish Song, Double Protect, swap out Gengar, and then Parting Shot back into Gengar. If this instant is fast, all of a sudden it's a problem where you Parting Shot back into your Gengar and the Gengar goes down because they call that slot out. However, it's a little less likely the slower your instant is. So slow pivot is very good with the Parting Shot here. And you don't need a fire move because you're on Rain. So overall, pretty cool team. You do have Encore. We have versions of this team with Hypnosis on the Politoed as well. And honestly, just a really unique Rain team and a really unique Perish team kind of combined together. It's a little bit of a shake-up in the metagame, and it's actually pretty fun to play. I've played a few games with variants myself, but overall, really cool team. I think it was a cool, interesting way to solve a problem from both the common problem from both of these archetypes. So curious to see where it goes. It's kind of fallen off a bit, but I do still think it is good, and we see it kind of showing up in some of the top cuts still in those VR events. Nothing too crazy, but you see it every now and then, and I think it's still a really good team. Guys, of course, I would not be doing my job of recommending teams if I didn't have a single team that had a Charizard on it. In my opinion, there are big three here that I want to talk about. Of course, the fourth one there being that Charizard Floette. I'm not going to talk about Charizard Floette. I think there's enough versions, enough concept, and enough hype going on about those three. But I will quickly talk about three other Charizard versions that I think are just as good, if not better, for the current metagame right now than Charizard Floette. However, Charizard Floette is still very good, despite me not mentioning it on this list. Kicking the Charizard section off, we're going to get Charizard Pelipper. So this is my main argument for why Charizard is the best Pokemon in the format. Guys, we built a Rain team and said Charizard is one of the best Megas on it. In fact, Charizard is the Mega. Like, we built a Rain team and said that Charizard was the best. That says all you need to know about how good Charizard is. There's going to be opportunities and moments in games where you end up with a Charizard in Rain, and it's going to suck, but it's so good the rest of the time that it's still the best option for this team, which is absolutely crazy. This was an initial team built by Lexicon over on the Tub Takes side of things, so definitely be sure to check them out. This is a recreation, by the way, not the exact EVs. I don't think those were ever put out into the universe. But overall, very crazy control of the board state with this team. You have Charizard, you have the Venusaur, just Focus Sash Venusaur, 2 attack, big damage, and of course everybody's favorite move, Sleep Powder, right? So you kind of have a Sun mode, you have a Pelipper or Chaladon mode, and then you just have Scarf Basculegion with pivot ability, and Grimmsnarl with Parting Shot for pivot ability. And what you're allowed to do is effectively just lead a couple of your big pieces and Parting Shot into, or Flip Turn into, whichever support piece that you're wanting at that point to help get the team running. Like if they're leading Charizard into, like, let's just say Archaladon Grimmsnarl, well, you normally would have to hard pivot Pelipper in, but then they would Mega and the Sun would stay up. But now with Grimmsnarl, you click Parting Shot. Not only are you sending them down to -1, if they would Mega Evolve before that Parting Shot goes off, then Pelipper comes in and you're guaranteed Rain that turn, which is really good. Obviously, there is ways to get around that, but the concept being, you know, you can Parting Shot into Rain, get Archaladon going. You can go Charizard as well and just get Sun going. You could have Venusaur beside Grimmsnarl, Parting Shot into Charizard. A lot of concepts with this, a lot of concepts with this team that I think are incredibly strong here. And you just kind of get the best of everything, right? You get a really good part of the Sun core. You get a really good part of the Rain core. And you get a couple things to just kind of merge them together. Really cool team. And obviously, it won a couple VRs ago for a reason. So, pretty cool team here. Curious to see if it actually evolves anyway, or if this is just like the overall best build for it. Moving on, we're going to go a little quicker with some of the Charizard teams here. Obviously, they're Charizard teams. They're out. They're popular. We've all seen them before. There's nothing too crazy here. And this is actually going to be my variant of the Aerodactyl Sylveon Charizard stuff. I do have a full video out with a team report on this. If you guys are interested in that, feel free to check that. I will link it somewhere. Of course, the rental code on the screen, though, just for you guys, because, you know, I didn't want to remove it. Overall, though, really consistent team. It's very oppressive. Aerodactyl King Gambit does crazy amounts of work. You can put Kowtow Cleave here. You can also just run Iron Head here, or Protect. I like Protect. I never felt that I was missing Kowtow Cleave, but I understand it's kind of insane. And Kowtow Cleave might be better to put back based on the current state of the metagame. But overall, really consistent team. Focus Sash King Gambit, max speed. Just you go Aerodactyl King Gambit, you have Tailwind, you get massive coverage options, and you just send damage. One of my favorite leads of all time, though, Aerodactyl Sylveon, and similar to, you know, the King Gambit stuff, you just get to click Hyper Voice, right? You just get to spam buttons. You get to click Hyper Voice and send damage. This can be Hyper Beam or Yawn. Both of those are viable, of course. Really cool team, pretty consistent. The Charizard and the Garchomp stuff, guys, there's nothing to talk about here. Just two good pieces in the metagame. This team, normally you do see like a Farigiraf in this variant. Somewhere here you're going to see a Farigiraf normally. I opted for Instant on my variant of the team, but you could easily put a Giraffe in this slot, in other slots as well. I think there was one with a Giraffe instead of a King Gambit, so lots of different options here. The synergies you get with this team of just being able to be offensive is insane. It's a lot more offensive when you do run the Farigiraf mode because you're able to just go Aero, King Gambit, have the Kowtow Cleave, not need Protect, and you have the Farigiraf to stop like fake outs and all that jazz, and you can just get aggressive with it, and you just do a bunch of damage, right? And you just put on immense amount of pressure, like Aero, Charizard, King Gambit, Sylveon, Life Orb, Garchomp. It's so offensive, it's so oppressive that one slip up from your opponent and you're probably just in a good spot. So very aggressive team. I tried to make it a little bit more balancy with the Incineroar, and it felt very good to me with the Incineroar, the Yawn onto Sylveon, and the Protect onto King Gambit. Felt like I just had a little bit more control of the board state rather than just raw sending damage across the board. So that's why I made that change, which is the key thing I wanted to talk about here. But overall, it's a very solid team archetype. It's falling off a little bit, especially with the Glamoras picking back up in usage. But overall, very, very cool team. Very consistent team as well. Moving on to the last team that we are going to talk about today. That is going to be Charizard Toxapex. And guys, love it or hate it, Toxapex is good right now. Personally, I hate it. I don't like this thing. It bothers me. It's not cool to look at. Toxapex enjoyers, I apologize if you are in the chat right now. But overall, it is a very strong option. Originally built by Xiliang Tang. Very, very strong player. And I'll leave that link down below for you guys as well. Be sure to check them out. But overall, we've got just good damage, right? Choice Scarf, Garchomp, Charizard. There's not a lot to say here, right? At this point, we've seen a lot of Charizard techs here. The key things you need to talk about here are this Helping Hand on Charizard, and the concept being Helping Hand into Life Orb Venusaur. It's going to hit a lot of the format, and it's just going to take out a lot of the format, right? You Helping Hand and boost up the Venusaur, and then the Venusaur just blows something up. That is one of the main concepts of this team. And then, of course, you kind of have just the coverage options as well, right? The Incineroar to make it a little bit more comfortable to pivot around. Very good into a lot of the Trick Room stuff as well. Toxapex, great into opposing Charizard, great into opposing Garchomp, opposing Charizard, opposing Aerodactyl with that wide guard, right? And then all of a sudden you just trap things in with Infestation for your positioning because, oh, they want to bring in Garchomp. Okay, well, Infestation, boom, bring in Incineroar, intimidate them. Now they're stuck on the board, they're at -1, they have an Infestation on them, the timer is set, eventually you're going to get through them. You can Toxic to add to that timer, keep things going a little bit faster, get that stall going a little bit faster. It's like a fast stall team, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but it's one of those ones in my mind where you have a lot of offensive tools, but you also have so many offensive or defensive options to stall things out, but also the stall aids in your ability to sweep because it aids in your positioning, right? The Infestation, yeah, it's slow. Toxapex gets leftovers. Yeah, it has Protect, it has Regenerator, right? But it aids in your ability to get the sweep going because it traps your opponent in, right? So like instead of having to, you know, slow stall, Toxic, Infestation, and just have them cycle around and not really gaining any positioning, the Infestation locking them in is actually huge for this team because it just keeps you in a position that you want to say. I say it all the time with the Gengar stuff, that when you can take away your opponent's ability to switch from the game, it makes your decision making easier and their decision making much, much harder. So why wouldn't you do that if you have an option to do that? So Infestation, in my opinion, is one of the key things that Toxapex does here. Obviously I haven't really played this team, so if I'm wrong in that, feel free to let me know, but that's kind of where I see this team going. And then the Annihilate is a pretty cool tech option. I think Phantom Force was a very, very cool tech move as well because it goes through the Protects. Right, so into, you know, that double fake out Delphox team, right? It takes away their positioning because you get the Phantom Force, and normally what would happen is they would try to like either parting shot off of something to get into their Teacup or their Sinistra, but and then try to protect, or they would switch out and protect. But now if you're already in your Phantom Force spot and they try to protect and pivot something in, well, the Phantom Force is still going to connect into the Delphox because of the protect. And if they manage to get the redirection on in front of the Annihilate before you're able to get the Phantom Force off, well, if they redirect, it's going to go into the Sinistcha with the Phantom Force, and then you're also being slower than the Delphox, meaning you haven't taken damage that turn. So obviously some extra positioning there, a lot of little, really cool small interactions that you can do with that. Overall, really cool concept though, and then you just go max speed, right? The Rock Tomb is fun as well, just to slow things down for the likes of your Charizard, especially because you don't run a very fast Charizard on this team, right? This one's parking at 133. Overall, very cool team. It's picking up in usage. There's not a lot more for me to say on this. Just overall, really cool team. That is going to do it for the video, guys. I wanted to make sure I kind of showcased a little bit of a different side of the metagame. I could have put like 18 Charizard teams, 17 Floette teams, and said use these. But I kind of went around and saw, you know, some of the more interesting stuff picking up in usage, some of the more interesting stuff that may have fallen off, but is actually still, in my opinion, pretty good. Overall, I tried to give you guys rental codes. Let me know if you enjoyed the format, because I'm willing to reformat these in the future. But I try to have the rental code available on screen as well as in the description, depending on, that way, you know, if you wanted it, whether you're watching on your TV, you can do it that way. If you're watching from your phone or anywhere else, you can just check the description if you need to and copy it, stuff like that. But overall, hopefully these teams help you reach your goals this season in Regulation MB. These are not only teams that you can try, these are also teams that you can, you know, prepare against as well. So let me know your thoughts on the video down below. I would really appreciate it. And of course, guys, if you don't mind leaving a like and a sub, really does help out the channel. But with that, I'm going to get on out of here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you all in a future video.